G'day guys, good to see you all. We are back for another week. Blinky's here. Oh. And somebody's mousing around. Yes, yes. It's the mouse and frog. Yes, I did get my oxalate juice done. The green one's got water. That's the water part. Yes, yes. Good, good, good. You got your little treats. Good to hear. Very important. Now and then. Fucked if I know. He's probably out there flying around, twerping, looking for a mate. It is, after all, spring, bird season. Could be the... I wish. Comfortable, but not that. Fair enough. Fair enough. You know. G'day, Dominic. Good to see you. Got a bit of a fan club here, mate. Ah, new name for him, Mickey Mouse. We love you, Mickey Mouse. G'day, Robin. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, God. Where's the Aussie intro? G'day, mate. That would have excited Luke. Ah, good to see you here, T2. You had two others that were missing you. Now, I don't think it was, close. Yeah. There's a bit of cynicism there from those two. Yeah, you can be certain about that. Yes, T2's very popular. We are. G'day, Val. No, I just... the face is probably a bit on the redder side because I just came out of the shower. Yeah, crazy trying to get the coffee ready, brush my hair, do everything. Yeah, just all over the place. And you can see the fucker is starting to grow again, starting to put a bit of length in it. It wasn't, yes, maybe I have to cut back on the zinc and the selenium and the biotin. Too many eggs. Yes, too much good nutrition, growing too much bloody hair. Yeah, at least my barber makes good money off me. It's the only person that does. Yes. Some of us are lucky to have genetics to be able to deal with coffee very well. Clears out 4 times faster. It doesn't do anything for me. It's only the taste. I just like the taste of it. I don't get any sort of effect or whatever due to those genetics. So I don't get a boost in energy, nothing. So, yes, it's just purely taste, nothing else. I mean, I can have a coffee at 11 o'clock and then go to bed and I'm out in five minutes. Has no effect on me whatsoever. So, anyway. So, yes, I don't get any highs from coffee. G'day, Shell. I hope you're decent. Just kidding. Yeah, pantsless. It's a regular thing for me. I say Harry on Bart's channel and was very impressed, so signed up for the chat. Thank you. So it's good to, if you enjoyed some of my content. There's a bit of I do some stuff. I've been trying to do more stuff with Pim as well. I've done my second sort of collaboration with her, and that comes out on Wednesday. So that's on APOE, but it's very different from what you traditionally get about APOE, because most people about APOE just focus on either the biochemistry side of things, or they focus on the, trying to tie it to modern diets and modern lifestyles and stuff like that, which is nonsense because those genetics expressions happen much earlier. So it's you'll get a bit of an insight, a historical insight, and an understanding how it came about and how these sort of modern justifications for certain dietary practices that we have today are unfounded because they have nothing to do with those genetics. Pretty much our genetics just haven't had enough time to keep up. So that's why we're getting sick. Because if we did have any sort of advantage or capability or whatever, that wouldn't be the case. So, pretty much nonsense in that regard. Yes. So we will continue. No BS. That's BS. Yeah, probably is. Probably is. Yes, it's a play of words. Yes. Yes, Uncle Harry's here. God. Mate of mine had his birthday yesterday. I just remembered that mine's not too far away either. Shortly, I'll be officially 54. Anyway, can't stop aging. We can only slow it down with a bit of biohacking. That's about it. G'day, Cynthia. Good to see you. Necro Kitty. Good to see you, Kitty. Yes. G'day, Jim. So we're having I'm having 2 live streams today. They will be slightly shorter, so I'm trying a different sort of approach, like 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours. There's another reason for it as well today. I'm sort of over to Dad's for lunch, so that's another reason why I'm cutting it a bit shorter. But there'll be an evening one as well, which will be 2.5. So it's sort of trying to get there, eating some salad while watching Harry, and good dressing recipe. I don't like the taste of leaves. Why are you eating them? Even traditional sort of modern Greek salads, real, what they call Mediterranean Greek salads, it's just basically de-seeded and de-skinned. Well, they don't do it now because they're too lazy, but they used to do it back then because I worked in a restaurant. We were told we had to do it as a youngster in the 70s. And so where you basically, it's tomatoes that have been de-skinned and all that, and pretty much you take the peel off the cucumber, you cut in a bit of onion. If it's seasonal, it's spring onion, which is very low sugar. If it's later on in the year, it's not. So, and then you throw in basically a big piece of feta cheese. You put in some oregano or oregano, depending on how you want to pronounce it, and some salt and pepper and some olive oil. And that was, the sort of the modern day Greek. I mean, it's morphed into something different nowadays. I've seen some of the modern incarnations, which have nothing to do with what I grew up with. So, and that's just a modern thing since probably 60s onwards that it actually became very fashionable. It was the same sort of era with sort of when the sort of vegetarian diets and the vegetarian diets and the hippie movements and that sort of stuff sort of emerged. Bart's in the... G'day, Bart. The meat militia is around. Yes, so it was sort of more on that regard in that sort of era. But if it's, as long as it's not causing any gut issues, we're very welcoming here. We encourage people to be more carnivorous because it's more optimal. But beyond that, as I said, I don't lecture people on what they eat. I just try to provide them with some helpful information. Good weather in Melbourne. Vitamin D today. Yeah, yesterday was quite nice as well. I actually walked right up. Remember, I did that video through that reserve, the Knocklofty Reserve, which is at the top of Mount Stewart. So yesterday, after I had a chat with Bart, I actually went right up to the top of the summit. I'd never done that. I'd sort of walked around all the other little pathways and all that, but I'd never really gone right up to the summit. So this time I decided, I'll go up there. And because most of the time I was going through there, I was going with a mate, and so we were it was like doing a walk or a sort of an intermittent type bit of cardio, whatever, around the city, which what we were doing for a while. So where I don't do those long sort of things anymore. I used to, my longest one was 26 Ks, but this was just sort of just enjoying the environment, walking through the trees and all that, the tree line. So yeah, that was enjoyable. I had a good time. I will be releasing that vid early next week. It's either going to be Monday morning or Tuesday morning. I haven't decided yet. Depends on how much time I get when I get back from Dad's place, and then I've got my live stream tonight, the Eurasian one, and then whether I can put it all together in time, it'll more than likely be Tuesday morning. So because it will take a few hours, and then in the morning, I'm working on Monday, so it'll be in the afternoon. Yeah, probably Tuesday here. Tuesday. Wait for it on Tuesday. Yep, I think that's. I won't commit myself earlier. Yes, nothing like. And there he is. Good to see you, mate. No, no, pretty much I'm rostered in by those buggers. Yeah, take it easy, mate. Take it easy. Yeah, chill out a bit, get out there in nature, walk around a bit, just relax. It's the best thing you can do, Bart. Um, continually full on. It's not a good thing. I mean, I'm really annoyed that I can't get out of the country, and for me to actually get from Tasmania to Melbourne, I would have to quarantine in Melbourne for 2 weeks. Then I'd have to fly out of the country, quarantine potentially there, I don't know, then come back, quarantining. It could be basically 2 months of quarantining. It's just not practical. So, and I can't get to the tropics, and I'm just really, now that spring's coming and I'm getting a few warm days down here, I'm starting to, I'm a bit happier, sort of, yeah. But the ultimate thing, I mean, I try to get a bit of exercise in, try to get a bit of movement around and stuff like that, because, lifting some weights and stuff like that, because that helps. It does lower stress levels, cortisol and stuff like that. Get your salt in as well. That also, helps. So, yes, those are the sort of things we can do. Try to be mindful, try to do a bit of, breathing exercises, try to socialize with people, really important. Even if it's online, just sit around, chat, talk shit. It's good to get things off your chest, good to relax, just to chill out. It's so important with life. I mean, if you go back in history, the world's been far worse. 50 million in the Second World War, devastate whole continents, devastated whole areas, people starving, famine. We may have problems, yes, but they're modern day problems. They're not as severe. And sometimes we just need to sort of step back a bit and say to ourselves, well, it's not, it's not the end of the world. Things are a bit hard, yes. And it just means that you need to make a few adjustments and stuff like that. Don't let it get you down in that regard. Yeah. So everybody's having their own conversation, I noticed. Nothing new there. Trying to see whether we can get any questions. I do want to cycle through because YouTube there's a bit of skullduggery on their side. And when I do my live streams after, they don't, even though I enable the option to basically allow the live chat to be seen when people are viewing it again, it doesn't actually happen. And it's really annoying. So in that regard, so I'm hoping that, yes, getting a bit nastier in the US. Yes, it's not a good situation. Hope things start quieting down after the elections. It's not a good thing. The end of the day, you still need to talk to your other fellow country people, men, women. No society has ever turned out well by going to civil war or fighting amongst each other. Just take a look around the world, guys. It's not a pretty picture after people go at each other's throats. It really turns out nasty for everyone. Everybody loses big time. So, people need to just step back and start talking with people. Fuck the media, fuck the TV, and fuck the actual, all these bloggers telling you to basically hate your fellow Americans or fellow citizens. Go and talk to actually real people. As I've said, I believe in direct democracy. I hate all politicians. They're all scumbags that work for the elites. They don't care for us. Go and talk to your neighbour. You've probably got more in common with your neighbour than you've got with the political party you think you belong to. Talk to real people. Interact with them. Try to solve things locally. You'll find reasonable people on both sides. Don't get sucked into to destruction. That's just so certain people can benefit and profiteer off the misery of others. Happens all the time, unfortunately. G'day, mate. G'day, Deborah. Good to see you. Colorado. Yes, nice place. A lot of mountains. I love walking up mountains. Maybe one day I may holiday in Colorado. Yes, apparently it's quite nice. I've seen a few images. I don't think we can do 23andMe outside the US. Yes, we can. Now, yes, I did. Yeah, I've done 23andMe from outside. The kit doesn't come from the US, it comes from Sweden. So you get the kit. So you sign up with 23andMe, and then they, you don't get the American kit, you get the Swedish kit. I don't know why, don't ask me. It seems like Europe, parts of Asia, Australasia and all that come out, are sort of assigned to that factory. Don't ask me, I don't know why. Yes. Yes, he did. He had enough. I mean, if you're deteriorating and falling apart, 7 more minutes and then I can break my fast. I can have my coffee. Yeah, if you're falling apart, you're not going to make gains. I mean, these guys have to do, even when they do steroids, and a lot of them cheat. They won't tell you that, but they cheat. They have to. I mean, we find out after the, John Venus, other people that come out later and tell us, oh, we had eggs or we have this. I mean, eggs is, steak and egg diet, or eggs and dairy. It's well known in the old bodybuilders. They used a lot of eggs and a lot of dairy to get that anabolic effect. So, whey protein, more anabolic than glucose, double the insulin spike. So, yeah, these characters, at the end of the day, they realize that animal foods are superior if you want to build, big, strong tissue. Doesn't happen any other way. So, and they basically just cheat but never tell people. And eventually, things get out or they get noticed or somebody videotapes them and goes, oh, and then they out them. So, yes. The reality is that's the case. There's not many people. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, Bart's very honest about what he does. I'm very honest about what I do. I've got my little indiscretions, especially with ice cream. You guys know it. I'm not going to hide. Most of these guys, these people just are deceitful, and just hide, and do these sort of things. So you can't trust them. But even when they're doing some cheats, it's still not working for them. It just shows how deficient the diet is and how bad the diet is. In the end, they just cannot. G'day, Jared. Good to see you, mate.
Hey, Harry. How's it going?
With his stylish blue blocking glasses. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, I'm not blocking in the blue on my skin. I guess I could turn off all my lights and disable my camera and just be an ethereal voice. And then it doesn't matter if I wear the glasses or not.
That's it.
How are things this week? It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been, I had a bit of a break. I had other things that occupied my time, friends and family and stuff like that. So I sort of dealt with all that sort of stuff.
Sounds wholesome.
Yes. We've still got the cat here, unfortunately. We may be able to expedite the cat. I mean, my sister, she went on a bit of a trying to find a way, and then eventually she realized if it goes through Melbourne, I checked a few companies, it didn't really work out. It was going to cost her quite a few $1,000s because of the delays and the quarantining, and we said, look, we'll wait until November to see whether we can get the cat to Western Australia or not. So that all fell apart, didn't really work out the way we wanted. Yeah, so nothing new there. So now I have to go around to Dad's place next week and try and move a whole lot of her stuff, because she's going to get some of it sent over. So we think we can get some stuff over of hers. So yeah, it's all up in the air at the moment with the situation in Melbourne, because Melbourne's sort of like a hub where a lot of things move through, especially for Tasmania. Tasmania's major hub is Melbourne, Victoria. So, if we can't get there, we've got difficulty getting stuff into the state or out of the state. So it's a bit of a bloody hassle at the moment. But yeah, and things are a bit wild over there. God, I mean, where's the common sense? Just giving people a bit of a warning, stuff like that. They're just going around harassing people, arresting people, and
yeah, I hear there's been a couple of people arrested for Facebook posts.
Not only that, also some grandmother she was out in the park with another friend, and they walked up and basically arrested her. I don't know. It's just really wild in that regard. Yes. So, don't know. I don't want to really get into all that, because at the moment things are sort of really strange in this country. Got to be careful what you say.
Mm-hmm. Those sound like the types of things that you might say in a dystopian future, is fraught with censorship.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you sort of feel like you're in some part of the Eastern European theatre or place in a different time, and you're sort of going, should I say this or should I not? Are my words being monitored?
Do you have a license to say what you want to say?
I suspect not. So you people eat no fiber whatsoever? What the fuck? Mate.
Simple. What do you mean, you people?
You people. He means carnies. You carnies, I mean, Inuit, they've been doing it over multiple generations, Ever heard of them? And there's a whole lot of other traditional tribal populations that consumed meat-heavy diets or nearly complete heavy diets. So, what? What are you talking about?
Actually, Harry, I need to turn in my carnivore badge and gun because I had a pickle the day before yesterday.
Oh, you bad person!
Homemade lacto-ferment pickle that was offered to me. Yeah,
mate, I've done that as well.
It was
like last Saturday. I had basically a couple of pickled cucumbers. So
yeah, that's what I
yeah.
So in North America, pickled means a pickled cucumber.
Yes, exactly. I did that as well. Pretty much. Yes.
Yeah,
but
it's fermented.
We're not vegan.
Live culture.
I know we're not.
I
vegans.
had a good.
Mate, you don't have to worry. We're not vegans.
I drank most of the.
Even the Inuit had a few berries in their summer period. When they could get access to them. So
it was that's the first time I've had a pickle in 2 years.
Yes. What we're talking about in the carnivore diet are more, unless you've got some underlying condition like a gut issue where you need it to be resolved, then zero carbs completely is a good issue. But if you don't, and I've never had, and even my last tests that I did, they were so good. The actual doctor said, "Why are you here? And do you have a psychological issue?" And I said, "No, my GP sent me." Because I was basically having some stomach issues, and I think I just basically had a bug at the time, and it sort of cleared out. It must have been, and it only lasted for it was probably some sort of infection that I didn't realise, and that was all it is. And once it cleared out, the problem is because you're on a waiting list. It took a number of months before I ended up going in, and by then it all resolved, so there was nothing there to see. And so he goes, and I go, well, this was basically quite a few months back, I said to the doctor, and I was sent. Now, you guys could have cancelled it, but, thanks for telling me that I'm in good nick. So I wasn't complaining. And if we take a look at even the study that Paul Mason showed ages ago in Low Carb Down Under, it showed when people were on zero fiber, all their IBS and issues like that went away.
Yeah, it was the only intervention offered that resolved the issues for 100% of cases, actually.
Exactly, precisely. It was the only one, because basically we don't have a cecum. We are not basically apes. We don't have a cecum. And even apes and Vegan Warrior, you should go and check the ones on Bark K, the 2 that I did, the one on the chimps that consume up to a ton of meat a year. Real stuff in the wild, not this bullshit that they've got in these centres which are run by vegetarian academics in Nigeria, in the Jane Goodard Centre, which is dodgy as dog shit. And I know from an ex-academic that actually worked there, and she actually told me all the inside gossip about how it's run. It's dodgy. And the actual chimps were squabbling amongst themselves so badly, they literally had to build these termite mounds in order to give them enough animal protein so they would stop fighting amongst each other, because they couldn't control the bickering, and they weren't prepared to give them meat. Oh, God, no. Give that, can you imagine if I should have been there, just grab a small little monkey and throw it in the middle, see the carnage that would have, just to make a point. But, yeah, this is just dodgy bullshit that's out there that has been for a long time, and it needs to be, when you put chimps in a savanna environment, they start behaving like early hominins and start hunting, developing spears and all that. You should check my video on the savanna chimps. Just type it in, Bart K, savanna chimps, and you will actually see what our closest relatives do when the chips are down and they're in a savanna environment. They don't go out, they don't hunt for fruit or tubers, because basically you need fire to deactivate all the anti-nutrients that will cause you a lot of grief otherwise. So, yes, we're meat eaters, mate. And we always have been. The only difference is we can tolerate some vegetable matter. That's the thing. Starvation food. There's not much nutrition in it. That's why you guys fall apart, and you basically fall out of the Church of Anorexia Vegana, because it doesn't work for you in the end. So good luck with your life. Hope you don't damage yourself too much before you see the light. Yes, definitely. It's fiber rich, don't you know? You really need it. Your colon can't do without it.
Fiber is a construction material.
They seem to forget, one thing that they seem to forget is you can get butyrate from isobutyrate from proteins. You don't need fiber at all. So, I mean, you go back and look at the Inuit, they didn't ever know, they had no word for cancer, they had no word for irritable bowel syndrome, they had no word for things like cardiovascular disease or stuff like that, because they didn't exist. When you're eating a species-appropriate diet, these problems don't exist. It's simple as that. Yes. And hi to you as well. Good to see you here. Yes, we like Birdie. You'll have to basically, I've actually, there's some new information that I've come across anyway, but I will be doing something with Bart or Pim potentially. You'll have to wait. I'm not going to give it all away. So there's plenty in meat. Trust me. There is. And the biochemistry is misunderstood very much. But as I like to bust myths, that will have to wait, and you will have to wait. That's a up-and-coming video to cover that area. So, yes. We're still doing it, aren't we, Bart? Hopefully. Well, from the proteins, they have something which is equivalent to some sort of fibrous type material, if you could say that. But, we don't need fiber, not required for anything. Our bodies basically will get, and even fiber, it has to basically, the bacteria that are very close to the fiber where it's sticking on the actual colonocytes will actually transfer, and it's not uniformly transferred, the butyrate. So in a sense, it's not as good as basically the sort of nutrition you get from the animal foods, where it actually goes more universally, isobutyrate and also other types of sources of short chain fatty acids that tend to be generated from bacteria as well, and all sorts of things that are basically being produced from other things as well. It's not only, some even can do it from certain types of fatty acids, but it's primarily proteins. And we on a carnivore diet consume a lot of proteins. The body itself, if you're in a ketotic state, will produce beta hydroxybutyrate. So basically, the body's got a number of mechanisms. It's like the things that I've mentioned before, how the body has got 2 pathways of methylation. It's got a number of methods of basically, dealing with collagen as well. We've discussed this before with the collagen degrading enzymes, matrix metalloproteinases, the importance of them. It's underrated. I'm probably the only person that really ums and uhs about matrix metalloproteinases, but these collagen degrading enzymes, which are regulated by fat soluble vitamins, are so important. This is why when you increase your MK4, you increase your vitamin D, things like, autoimmune diseases start resolving themselves far more. It's because autoimmunity and collagen degrading enzymes actually have an interaction as well. They work together, in terms, and you need the fat soluble vitamins to regulate that side of the way tissue is remolded and all that. So yes, very important, those little nanomachine enzymes, and their cofactors. And that's the importance of a carnivore diet, because our diet tends to be much higher in micronutrient content, which means the cofactors that are required for those enzymes, those enzymatic processes, are better served with a carnivore diet. Definitely not served with a vegan diet. It's just micronutrient poor, and poor bioavailability because of the chelation of a lot of the minerals. So, there's plenty of studies. We've seen them. We've shown them multiple times, all these studies showing that when you add basically certain types of plant matter in, you reduce the bioavailability of zinc from oysters, as an example. We've seen all these studies. So it's well known. Another thing, turmeric. A bit of turmeric for flavor is one thing. A lot of turmeric is bad. It's a strong chelator of iron. It's one reason why the big issue in India with iron deficiencies. There's a lot of studies showing quite clearly that when you reduce the amount of curry consumption, iron status actually improves because it's a chelator. It's one way. I usually say to people, if you've got hemochromatosis, add a bit of turmeric in there. So, or go and actually do a bit of bloodletting, one of the two.
Leeches.
Or leeches. That's right. Nothing like a good leech.
And then keep the leeches for fish bait.
Yeah, that's it. Depends where you stick them. I enjoyed Bart and Harry's show. So glad I got to catch you live. Thanks, Heidi. Appreciate it. Enjoy your coffee. That is a repeat Jesus juice.
Did I hear you say you were just finishing a fast, Harry, when I first came on?
No. Well, yeah. Sort of time restricted feeding, to be more precise.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, I basically did stop just in the afternoon. I tend to. It varies. I tend to eat always in daylight, but it sort of varies. Sometimes it can actually stretch into like 7 o'clock, but usually it's between 11ish to about 5, 6 around there that I basically do most of my eating, and then after that it's just water, salt water or stuff like that. It's not even coffee or anything, unless I'm somewhere else. I used to go around on Saturday nights to my sister's place, and I'd have a coffee later in the evening at her place. But that was, now she's in Western Australia, so that doesn't happen anymore. I usually just go around to my mate's place. We go for a long walk, have a bit of a chat, gossip about our friends and everyone else and what's happening in the world, and then basically go back, have a barbecue, and then I piss off home. So that's it for my Saturday. Yes, we all do. Yes, and proud of it. Oh, God. I mean, that's the ridiculousness of it. Most people don't realize that in part, like the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon's troops, in many cases, what they did was they slaughtered, livestock like horses, in order to feed fresh meat to the troops, which reversed scurvy. Okay, it's well documented in the history books. Go and look it up. So. And these people were not on basically as if they were on a carnivore diet. They were on a mixed macronutrient diet. So that's how powerful, But one thing they weren't is insulin resistant. If you're insulin resistant, it doesn't matter if you're even taking vitamin C pills. You'll just end up creating a whole lot of oxalate, because basically it still needs to get through the GLUT4 receptor, which glucose uses. And if there's insulin resistance, it's not going to get in there. You're still going to get scurvy. What do you think a lot of people that get scurvy, that are insulin resistant, diabetics and all that, they get all this, peripheral neuropathy and all sorts of issues, low-grade scurvy. Why? Because they're insulin resistant. Give us a break. It's just nonsense. It's the reason why meat, as long as it's fresh meat, and that's the thing with officers in the old navies. I mean, they used to eat fresh meat, and they never got scurvy. It was only their troops that were fed biscuits and stuff like that, really low-grade quality foods. Kibble. They were the ones getting, the sailors were getting the kibble and getting the scurvy. Exactly, Dominic. That's exactly it. I mean, God almighty, people need to literally look back at history. They just talk shit. And the so-called people that they say, oh, some of these people, that are basically eating meat are getting scurvy. No, what they're doing is basically they're eating junk food. That means a whole lot of processed junk food like burgers and stuff like that. And what they're doing is they're inducing a certain level of insulin resistance because they were engaging the Randall cycle. And as a consequence, what is happening is that it can't get the vitamin C in. So it's not the meat. If they were just eating meat and none of the burgers and all the other crappy stuff, they wouldn't have a problem. So... And the old, soldiers couldn't get basically insulin resistant because basically they were quite physical and they were burning through any of that glycogen or sugar that they were consuming anyway. So they were always below the threshold of insulin resistant or engaging the Randall cycle. So it didn't affect them. So when they consumed the flesh of those horses, they were able to get that vitamin C into their bodies and recover. So... yeah, I mean, if people are so wacko or, so ignorant that they think that they're actually getting from fruit in supermarkets, they're getting basically vitamin C, you're deluding yourself. Vitamin C, when you cut an apple off a tree and you put it on your table, hello, how are you? Where you hiding butter?
This is bacon.
This is bacon, isn't it? Yes.
Trying to make sure she doesn't step on the
Hey,
backspace key and navigate me away, as often
where
happens.
are the eggs?
Eggs is right over there on the chair. I can't turn my camera for you to see her because she's.
That's okay. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
I actually do have a cat named Eggs, though.
Yeah, I know. You mentioned it last time.
I wasn't sure if that stuck. That I don't think they've really been on camera all that much because I can't.
See,
get
there
them
are
to
some
stay.
there are there are some crazy carnies. Yeah, we'll just go on. We'll just move on. Yes. So pretty much most of these people were just eating dried stuff, crap stuff, low quality stuff, and when they gave them fresh meat, worked a treat. So yes. Good for you, mate. Well, happy birthday, because we won't actually potentially see you until next week. So
that's true.
Luke,
Yeah.
yes, happy birthday, mate.
Luke.
Yeah, I hope you have a good day and enjoy the company of your family, and they get you some treats, hopefully. Yes, that marvelous glut for. It probably is. It needs to get the fiber out. No, Ian, no. It's not a religious show. It's a, even though I am Greek Orthodox, it's not a religious show, mate. Precisely. Yes. What does a day of eating look like for you? What does a day look like? Depends. Yesterday, I had steak the day before, and I usually just have the occasional coffee, 2 coffees, a bit of cheese. I had about 120, I think it was, a bit over. Usually have 100, but I had, I think, 120 grams of feta cheese, so that was nice. And with the steaks. And the day before, I had pork. Day before that, I had pork again. I do like pork. And the day before that, I had some fish, some tuna, sort of a mix. It was some tuna and some whiting as well. So it was a bit of a mix type thing. I don't mind whiting, actually. Dad cooks it really nice. So yes, it sort of varies, but I usually have about generally 1 to 2 meals a day. It's one major meal, and the other one's sort of like a snack. It may be like 100 grams of brie, or it could be brie, raw milk, and it may be some jerky occasionally. I'll have a bit of jerky now and then. Every day I have a couple of eggs. Most days. If I'm not having eggs, then I have a supplement of choline, because I do have a genetic reason for it. So I don't endogenously produce it. I can't actually, not only don't I endogenously produce it, but on top of that, I can't even convert it from methionine. So I've got 2 genetic issues because my ancestors were consuming quite a few organ meats. So I tend to also consume some organ meats through the week. So it varies. Liver primarily, lamb's liver I prefer. I don't really like beef that much. Liver,
yeah, lamb's liver is a nice flavor compared to beef. Beef liver can be okay depending on the animal, but it changes a lot. It's really variable.
It's too variable. So yeah. I just don't like it. Other people do, but that's everybody's preference.
But lamb liver is very mild and sweet by comparison.
Yeah, and occasionally I do eat a number of crustaceans as well, like mussels, which oysters, some shrimp now and then, and so it varies. So I'd say I'm probably having seafood twice a week. I'm having basically pork twice a week, and the remainder, it varies between beef and lamb. But it's usually basically one meal. And if I've had a smaller one meal, because I just haven't been that hungry, then I'll probably have a bigger snack or a second meal. Otherwise, it's usually a snack than anything else. But that's about it. It's nothing really complicated or nothing really fancy. It's just, very much closer to what people would have done 10,000 years ago, gone out, got an animal, brought it back, eaten it, and literally done the same thing the next day. So not too complicated. You don't need to complicate things. People overcomplicate things. But if you do decide to come to the other side, so to speak, there will be an adjustment period. I would recommend you remove the vegetables at a slower pace. Transition slower. It's not a marathon. Most people think it is a marathon, but it's not a marathon. And sort of stick to things like pumpkin, there are a number of varieties of pumpkin. The low glycemic ones, the low sugar ones, are the best. So you have to sort of do your own research. A bit of zucchini, things like that. Things that are basically not going to be as harsh on your stomach and transition. So if you decide, Mr. Vegan Warrior, biohacking, yes, nothing like a bit of biohacking, kitty. Yeah, look, ancient Greeks used to fast. Modern Greeks do as well, especially the older Greeks, the more religious ones. They tend to fast up to 200 days a year. So it's half the year is basically fasting. So I think the advantage of the Mediterranean diet is less to do with some of the foods. It's more to do with the absence of food for half the year, where they get a lot of advantage. So, and I've done plenty of videos, chats with Bart on the actual Greeks and the Mediterranean diet. And I've also done an isotope analysis, one on my channel, on the ancient Greeks. That's where they've looked at the actual isotope, the N15 data, and the N15 data is quite clear. It shows that the Greeks were quite carnivorous, and the information quite clearly shows the type of animals that they were consuming, which were primarily ruminants, land-based animals, and a bit of coastal fish. That was it, the primary intake. And that was basically from the isotope analysis of these ancestors of mine. So that's in the bones. It's in the sort of connective tissue that's preserved. The collagen that is found. It's a slam dunk. It's science. It's pure data. Now, some of the as I went through that study, I sort of illustrated how some of the academics are so cognitive dissonant affected that they basically try to say, oh, they may have had a bit of this, or they may have had a bit of that, or they just want to make up stories. The reality is they were eating primarily these land-based animal foods and their milk products. That is what, because Greeks are pastoral. 80% of Greece is mountainous. We don't have open lands. Go to the Middle East and those sort of areas. Yeah, they have open, flat land where you can actually have agriculture. Greece, even in the flat lands or the islands, are rocky. Anybody that's gone on holidays, Greece is just one rocky fucking place where nothing really grows. All we have is goats, sheep, and some cattle in the north. That is primarily that's existed from antiquity. It's no different. And if you go to a lot of these Greek islands, the only thing that can grow on those islands were now they import a lot of things, obviously, but the old people had some of their little veggie gardens of green stuff, and there's not enough nutrition in that, we know from the vegan diet. So the only other things that they actually, and that was seasonal. So what was left was basically things like dairy products, a lot of cheeses, feta cheeses and a lot of other hard cheeses. I will do a thing on cheeses, of Greek cheeses. They do have a varied type from hard cheeses, like Kefalo Viera, and anybody that knows Greek knows exactly what I'm saying. And we have a variety of things, and I will do a bit of a show. I mean, you have to only look at the Homeric epics. It was all dairy products. Even the Cyclops that was actually, his eye was impaled, he basically had his own cheeses. This is what attracted Odysseus and his company of men through into the cave. So, and it was all, remember, they actually had to literally put the fleece of the actual animal over them to get past the Cyclops, because he thought that they were animals, his own sheep he was letting out. So he wouldn't harm them. And so this is how they deceived the Cyclops, which I think his name was Polyphemus, who was a son of the sea god Neptune, as you guys know him, Poseidon as we do know him, or even some of you guys know him as Poseidon. So you look through the Homeric epics, you look through all these sort of stuff. Greeks knew. I mean, even the Athenians, who basically, because they traded with the Middle East in the classical era, and they had some grains coming in from these regions, because Greece exported a lot of olive oil. Even in antiquity, was primarily used for lamps, for lighting, because this was the reason why the Greek and Persian wars. It was the first oil wars. Greeks controlled the olive oil trade and provided most of the oil that was required for lighting in all the cities around the Mediterranean and beyond. And pretty much the Persians basically wanted a cut of that trade. They wanted to cut the Greeks out. So they were trying to conquer them. And, because olives will grow on really rocky and poor quality soils. They don't need a lot of water either. So olive trees are really, really unique in that way. And that's why Greeks, used them as an export item. But in Greece, up until the Second World War, they were still, my father with his mother was larding, because basically animal fats were much more readily available all year round. My great-grandfather lived 107. Most of the Sardinians still in the mountainous, they pretty much consume that sort of food. They're pastoral, like many of the Greeks in the mountains of Greece were. A lot of them now have gone into the lowlands and are eating shit. So it's not as healthy, but, the reality is that people were much better off in the past. The only things they did suffer was sort of communicable diseases, but, that's a different kettle of fish. If you survived, the plagues and the tuberculosis and everything else, you'd live to a right old age on that sort of food. Good for you. What's Bart saying? It's always hilarious when vegans say, day of eating, exactly. We don't have all these hang-ups with food. Vegans do. That is why it's called the Church of Anorexia Vegana. and hours of preparation. Nowadays, they're too lazy to do that because they just don't have the energy, so they go and buy junk food, which is full of seed oils and sugar. They'll really fix their insides and their heart and everything else. Yes, accelerate dementia. The evil oil. Nah, it's used in a lot of liturgy, sort of religious activities as well. Even in ancient Greece, the athletes for the Olympic Games used to oil themselves with olive oil. So it was sort of like a blessing thing. They didn't cook. There may have been a bit of use of cooking here and there, but it was primarily used for, lighting. That's what it was used for. And it was actually a population in the Middle East, which then their name starts with M, and I can't remember them. They were this population emerged a bit after the Assyrian type decline of the or was it? No, sorry, it was before the actual ascendance of the Assyrian Empire, but I just cannot remember their name. They were the ones that came up with this form of using olive oil to light up their cities and stuff like that. So it had its purpose. I mean, a lot of Europeans in the northern parts, like in Scandinavia, and that were using whale fat, to oil their lamps and stuff like that. So different parts of the world, they've used animal products and they've used plant products in the past. So yeah, it had its uses at the time, and the consumption was very low in terms of food consumption. Greeks pretty much used animal fats, dairy fats, and stuff like that. I mean, still to today, I mean, you've seen some of my stuff that I've actually shown. The stats are quite clear. Greeks are one of the biggest consumers of milk in Europe, in the world. Actually, they're the fifth biggest consumers. So they're pretty close to the Swiss. Sometimes some years we're ahead of them, some years we're behind them. It's mountainous. The damn Pindos mountain range goes right down to the bottom of the Peloponnese. If you ever get a chance to go on holidays in Greece, you will notice going through the Peloponnese and through those sort of central mountainous areas, it's just rocks everywhere. It's so damn rocky. It's next to useless for traditional grain agriculture. That is why they had livestock all over the place. The islands, it's just basically sheep and goats, primarily goats, but on some of them you can have, where you've got a bit of soil, you can have sheep as well. Yes. Yes. Biscuits are scurvy rats. Yes, they definitely were. Yes. We do have a few friends from the meat militia as well. You should join them. How about the politics of nutrition? You mean the skullduggery of the predominantly grain-pushing vegan and vegetarian academics? Those people? Yes. Those people don't do science, they do pseudoscience. And when they do science, like Christopher Gartner, who did the A to Z study and showed Atkins being superior on all grounds, and he's a plant-based academic, he basically disowned his own study, and now he's going and doing all these dodgy studies to basically make it up to the other plant-based academics who shunned him for a while. Yes, didn't work out for him that well. So he had his truthful moment, but that was about it. It's crap. It's got plenty of anti-nutrients. It's got very little bioavailable nutrition, and it's not good for your gut if you consume it in large amounts. So why do it? It's just awful. I mean, kids know best. If you give it to a child, it goes, ooh. They know. It's just natural.
Kale is for garnishing displays of meat at the butchers.
Exactly. That's where it should be. We should continue using it as they used it in the past. Yes. The comedy continues. Yeah, look. He's seen the light. So yes, he saw the light eventually.
I've probably got another.
What do we say about
here.
Kale? I'll give you the Roman
Emperor Serpanos.
That's it. Send them to the lions. Send them to the lions. Send that kale nonsense to the lions.
Those poor lions.
I mean, no, just to rip them apart. I mean, you got to make a salad somehow.
I'm gonna go in 15 minutes or so here.
That's fine, mate. Yeah, you do what you need to do.
I'm pretty
tired.
Yeah, I'm low energy today.
Fair enough.
Been running an earlier schedule, so I feel even more tired than usual at this hour.
What's Bart saying? I'll pass it on, Harry.
No, don't! It's not Bart, it's YouTube talking through Bart's account.
Oh, shit. I'm fucked. God. That's nasty. Yes, new complexion. You guys having a bit of fun, aren't you?
Did you end up getting your new lighting, Harry?
The sun gives me green power. What was that?
Did you?
I did. I did actually. Yeah, I did. Yeah, in the evening tonight, I'll actually turn it on. People will see it. So it's really hard now because I'm getting sunlight coming right through. So you're not going to see much. But in the evening, I will. Yeah. Actually, it's a bit strange. Like, let's say, just before bed, you're heading to the toilet at about 10:30, 11ish, and you turn on the red light, and it goes, this seems a bit strange in here. So you've probably people have probably seen other people that have that are in a red light type, and it's really sort of strange. You can't see things properly. Things are your eyes can't.
Perception's all messed up, and it's black. It's basically black and white, right? It's all monochrome.
Yeah, it's really a strange sort of view. Have I wiped myself sufficiently? Luckily, we don't produce too much.
Can't say I have that issue very often on carnivore.
Yes, exactly. So it's always a very small amount that my increase in talking about that in terms of feces really only occurs the more dairy I consume. So if I basically have a few days where I'm just basically, look, Harry's toilet is a red light area. He can't help himself, can he, T2? Oh, God. So, yes, I have had that comment from my next door neighbour as well. What's happening? Bedroom,
we have red lights in our place for nighttime.
And sort of, is this a red light district, Harry? What are you doing? So, yes, my Chinese neighbor asked me. Actually, it was also one of the other guys as well. But yes, it looks well. Yeah, the one in between, which knocks out or which still has some of the orange spectrum, which is the sort of evening type spectrum. That's fine. You can sort of get around it. You can still, contrast is pretty good. Everything's fine in that regard. But the red light is a bit difficult getting used to. Look, I'm used to it now, but in the early days it was a bit, I was sort of wondering, should I have gone for all, do I need to go that far? And then I said, look, if I get up, which is extremely rare, and so, once in a blue moon, but especially when I've had a bit of alcohol, somebody's birthday party or something like that, or retirement thing, it's the only time I actually break my, and I have a few drinks, then, I may get up in the evening, and then it's a bit of an annoyance because then it's hard to sleep if you're turning on the lights. So, or you're basically going in pitch darkness, so it's useful in that regard, but it was a bit weird in the beginning, but it's fine now. I'm used to it. Oh, thanks, StreamYard. I just lost my spot. Damn.
I would buy more bulbs if I could, but I haven't bothered to yet.
Yeah, I've pretty much covered. They are expensive. That is true. They are really expensive. Damn. Sorry, guys. I did lose my spot, and it just jumped. Yep. I think we've covered pretty much Mike.
The lights that I have are not like specifically rated wavelength lights, but my understanding is that as long as it's a red LED, as long as the diode itself is red inside the light, then it already emits almost a pure red spectrum. It's different, I think, if the light bulb just has a coating over it.
Exactly. Yeah. Look,
a lot of these lights that are marketed as red sleeping lights, like these Blue Blocks lights that they're putting out for $30 a bulb, I think are that's a little bit greedy.
They are very much. Obviously, these are designed and engineered to knock out the blue spectrum properly. They're not just these sort of it's that company, that blue blocking light company in Australia. So they are built to really to much better specs than some of the general stuff that's out there. Some of the other red lights, they're not very pure blue blocking. So you got to be very careful. So I said, look, I'm not going to waste my time. I said, fine, I'll just buy the whole lot and get them changed, and just did it. So yeah. Since as my mate said, you're not going on holidays, start spending some of that money, and so that's what I'm doing. Yep. Can't get out of the country, apparently. Yes. The meat militia authority is an illusion. Yes, we don't get. Never defy Ted. Yes, exactly. Do not defy Ted. You will be in danger. Ted is a very evil bear. Very dangerous. Oh, haven't they missed out? They didn't have a word for kale either. Poor Inuit. Sort of they still may have a sort of like a nickname for it, explosive toilet experience.
I'm sure they still have a word you could use to describe kale.
Exactly. Seems like not a lot of people are actually interested in asking questions today. It's all commentary.
Yeah, boxing talk I see going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of exactly, boxing talk. So yes. People are having fun. That's good as well. And on another point, how's the sort of the Milk Association of Canada going? The Raw Milk Association.
It's good.
It's the new name, isn't it? We don't call it what it really is.
The Raw Milk Protection Group.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. But we just call it an association. We won't call it a racket. We won't call it a milk racket.
I've been making a lot of it into milk kefir.
Okay. Yeah, it's not.
And I've experimented with doing a second ferment on the kefir, just using like a little bit of honey to turn it a slightly alcoholic. It's nice.
Interesting. Yes. Next he'll be trading in the other type of illicit drinking formulations. You heard it here. God, let's hope there's no mounting in the stream. The way things are going crazy in this world. Oops. Hello, Mandy. Good to see you. The differences in nutrition between red meat and white is quite noted. Yeah, look, it varies. I'll give you one example. MK4 in white meats like chicken, the different bird varieties, so to speak, is much higher than in red meat. So it's not all 100% red meat is the bee's knees, so to speak. So you will get more MK4 from white meat than you'll get from red meat. And also some from their fats as well. So if you take a look at goose liver pate, very high in MK4. You look at emu oil, very high in MK4. So it's not, red meat tends to have a better amino profile and a better fatty acid profile in that regard. But when it comes to, and also when it comes to the fat soluble vitamins, excluding MK4, it is superior. But when you add MK4, it's not. So on the K2 side, white meats tend to be a bit better in that regard. Obviously, certain dairy is much better than all that, but so yes. Yeah, the thing is, there's a lot of different variations, and we should. I encourage people to do a more Mediterranean style carnivore diet. So the varied animal foods, both in terms of dairy, if you can tolerate it, eggs, if you can tolerate them, seafood, if you can tolerate them, and depending which ones you can or cannot, depending on your circumstances or genetics profile and things like that. So I would say try and get ruminant animals being 50% of your diet up to 60, and then at least a third try and being from other sources. And when I say ruminant animals, the 2/3, I'm also including in that some organ meats as well. So don't neglect some of that stuff. And depending on your nutritional status, where you're coming from, you may need more, you may need less, depending. So keep that in mind. I mean, that's the sort of thing that like Terry Walsh, who reversed to MS. She basically, because MS is an autoimmune disease, and MK4 and vitamin D and retinol, these fat-soluble vitamins in particular, are regulators of a lot of the actual collagen-degrading enzymes that have a role in myelination, in all these sort of, connective tissue, your different parts of the brain are required to basically for these different body parts to work properly. So I think that was the part. Now she attributes that she got some things from vegetables, but I've known people that basically have tried a more vegetable heavy version of her diet and are still MS sufferers. It's really fundamentally comes down to nutrient deficiencies, that basically then things start not working properly. So most people get a lot of these nutrient deficiencies on a standard diet because it's so poor, and those who are more vulnerable are the ones that actually succumb. But when you go on a meat heavy diet, you notice. Remember Amber Hearn? She reversed her bipolar with a meat heavy diet. When you basically go on a meat heavy diet, a lot of things change. A lot of people's conditions just fall by the wayside. So I would say it's the nutrient density of animal foods that make the big difference. And a lot of people are so deficient, and you need the cofactors. If you want a whole lot of biological functions to happen in your body, those enzymes need cofactors, and those cofactors are called vitamins and minerals. And if you're not getting enough of those, then these things don't work properly. And I think that's where these deficiencies, we have to go back. Vitamin D deficiencies created rickets in the past, and now you're seeing it in young vegan kids that don't consume animal products. It's not accidental. Vegan deterioration shows a lot of these kids, and it's really hard to see some of these. Sometimes I'll look a bit and I'll like it and then just give it a miss because it's so hard to look at some of that sort of stuff. I just can't understand how a parent could be sacrificing their child in such a way and putting them at risk for death. It's beyond me. Especially when you actually look at the vegan kill cult, how many people die, and JD does a lot of good stuff that actually demonstrates how massive amounts of in the vegan kill cult sort of approach. Garland Farms has all these videos that actually just shows the amount of poisons and destruction and runoff into rivers and lakes that actually happens in order to create the vegan kibble, or the kibble that most people nowadays consume out there. So that's the other thing that sometimes people forget and don't balance, where ruminant animals on land build soils. We've known this. Before we had the petrochemical inputs, what do you think petrochemicals are? They are dead animals and dead plants coming back, being dug up and or either mined or basically extracted out of the soil to basically put back onto soils. But they provide a few things, but they don't provide the sort of profile that you would get from a ruminant animal defecating and pissing on the actual ground, because basically that is part of the water cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the carbon cycle. Ruminant animals have been doing it for millions and millions of years throughout the whole world, both domesticated and wild. And the reality is, they are the animals you basically put animals on a pasture, they will rebuild those soils very fast. It doesn't take long, and there's plenty of examples of that. Time-lapsed videos that people have made showing the rebuilding of soils through pastured animals. Anybody can Google it and see the information, unless you're a vegetarian person who basically wants to avoid the truth. If you want to live in lie, in your kibble apartment, in your insulated little world in some big city, and don't want to actually look at reality or understand reality, then, the reality is that there is life and death in nature. It's a cycle of life and death. You can't have, animals feed, some animals are fed, which are ruminants, by plants, but they don't actually consume the plant. It's the bacteria and the protozoa and all that consume it. And it's in the last actual acidic part where they consume these small organisms. And that's how they get their nutrition, cows and all ruminants. So ruminants are basically carnivorous in their final chamber or their final stomach. So there is no, you can't live off plants. I mean, vegans try it and they fall apart and deteriorate. You just have to look. So many fall apart. So you need, at the end, your body is made of tissue. You know, it's made of protein and fats and cholesterol. And if you don't have those things, your body starts falling apart. It's simple as that. It's not accidental that people are healing themselves and feeling much better on an animal-based diet. It's because they've been deficient for so long. You know, I mean, if they weren't so deficient, probably they could have a few plants here and there, and it wouldn't really affect them. Like in the past, humans had a very, you know, because they didn't abstain from animal foods. But when you've basically have scared the population with the BS about animal foods, and people start consuming only about 30% or less of their diet, and they literally pack in the carbs and all that and become nutrient deficient over a number of generations and a number of years, then, you know, you really need to go to sort of the Inuit approach to basically rebuild nutrition more rapidly. And that's what our community is doing. You know, that is basically what we're promoting, nutrient density, which is bringing back people. Go. You want to say goodbye? Sorry. I ranted for too long.
I wasn't waiting, I was listening. But yeah, I should go, actually.
Thanks for being here, mate. I appreciate it.
Had a long day today. Yeah, thanks for having me here. It was good to do it again.
See you next week.
It was weird. It was weird last week for me without commitments on Saturday night.
It must have been. You didn't know what to do with yourself.
No, I think I ended up in bed early.
Well, there you go. Well, at least you got some sleep out of it.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Anyway,
okay.
mate.
I'm going to go
Appreciate
sleep now.
it. Yeah. See ya.
Thanks, Harry.
Good night.
See you next week.
Yeah, definitely. Back to me. Well, let's get through some of these things. What are we looking at? And cats. They don't go well with birds. Ah, yes, bacon. Oh, I love bacon. Two guinea pigs are named. My two guinea pigs are named Emergency and Ration. Nice one, Kitty. She's got a stored meat in a live form. Yes, yes. So, yes, you're welcome from all of us. We do appreciate all the things you do for our community. And, you know, particular for me, I think Bart would actually say the same thing. You do really help us. You do a number of things for us, some of the comical stuff, you know. You take the mickey out of me, which I enjoy, you know. If you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? I usually say. So it's good fun in that regard. Keep up the good work, and I hope you enjoy you have a good day in 5 days' time. Okay, protein increases insulin moving GLUT4 with or without increasing glucose receptor. Yep, would be uptaking a much higher vitamin C. Yep. But at the same time, there's a few other things that I've come across, so they will be elucidated at a later date, and you'll be surprised. Yeah, so even through meat doesn't have much. Yep, most taken up. Yeah, exactly. Look, we don't need as much, and it's usually premised on a lot of things. It's far more complicated picture than what we've been told. So there's a lot of dodgy crap out there, and I'm in the process of putting something together. I've sent the information to Bart. He's seen the studies. I've just asked him to, when he gets around to basically reading them, we'll try and put something together, whether it's on my channel or whether it's on his, as something, just to give him a bit of support. We'll go into it, and you guys will be quite surprised about some of the stuff. You'll have fresh new ammo in a very different way. So yes, I think you'll be salivating for that one. That one should be quite popular when it does come out. Yes, I like to bust myths, and I like to really upset things out there, because yeah. So it was against religions believed to be on drugs. Not only religious, there's even secular people that are against for a number of reasons. So in that regard, and some religions actually did use drugs to induce certain states. So it sort of goes both ways. I think it has to do with different times, different places, and different sort of ethics and beliefs and views and how they used and stuff like that. Because also a lot of these things also were used for medicinal purposes as well. So in a more or less concentrated form, but they were. So it's a bit more complicated, the picture. Must have been. Scared him away. Oh, look, you never know. He may go away and think about it and go and check my, the N15 data and start wondering himself, am I right? How can this, this is solid data coming from archaeological evidence that bones do not lie. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe the people that have been telling me all these lies for a number of years have been bullshitting to me. And so maybe he'll just think slightly, I'll challenge anyone, you know me, I'm not fucking scared of anyone, bring it on, anyone. Usually they're intimidated because I usually go for the juggler. You know what I am. At this case, when it's light-hearted like these sort of people, they're victims. I treat them with a bit more kindness. They're victims. But when it's the actual so-called gurus and all that, I don't hold back on those guys, because they've basically a pile of shit. As far as I'm concerned, they deserve no better from me than to basically go after them like with a ton of bricks. So got no sympathy for them, because these people in many regards are doing very, like they're injecting, like a lot of these vegan doctors, they'll inject things and do all sorts of dodgy things to cover themselves so they look good. Some of these athletes using steroids and all that, they say, oh, we don't do this sort of stuff, so they can hide all their cheating. Or the recent doctor that vegan doctor who the dark-skinned guy, I forget his name now. He's basically, recently it's, that he's been using some eggs and all that. The unholy egg for the vegans, So, but I did an experiment, it's all this bullshit. These people cheat constantly, but when people are catching up to them, they reveal a bit and they say, oh, it's just an indiscretion, here or there, to cover themselves, So if they really have to come out, it's sort of an indiscretion or that. But generally speaking, it's like Raw Christina. She was hiding a lot of things that she was doing dodgy. She'd been caught doing certain things out, I think it was fish at the time, So all these people are so dodgy as dog shit. They don't really, because for them, for us as carnivores, for us, we basically say, try to stick to a more carnivorous diet, but we're not ideological about it. We know that the more animal foods you have, the better nutrition you have, the healthier you are. But we're not basically a church. We're not basically a religious movement saying you must not eat plants. We're not crazies like that. We basically say, yeah, I mean, I put herbs and spices, on mine. Occasionally, I'll have a bit of vegetables if I go out and eat at Dad's place. He may have some. I'm not going to. I'll push a few. I'll have a few just to basically keep him happy. But we need to be sociable and stuff like that. And the occasional, I do like pickled stuff. And occasionally I don't like onions and stuff like that. That's just, pickled, that's crap. But, and I don't like tomatoes or sort of those sort of dried tomatoes in olive oil and stuff. They don't really do anything for me. But cucumbers, actually, I really enjoy. They've got that sort of soury sort of, and I like soury things, like I like lemons. You've known me for, I always put lemon juice, shitloads of lemon juice on my steaks and stuff like that because I love lemon. It's just one of the things. I mean, I usually get lemons from Dad because he's got his own lemon tree. So I usually get mostly from many parts of the year. So we're not a religious sort of nutty whatever. We just basically try and encourage people to eat a more carnivorous diet because it's healthier for them. It's going to provide them with more nutrition to make them healthier. We're not there like the carny police. There is no carny police, anything like that. So we're more reasonable people. We just have a more, meat heavy diet. Some of us are 75%, some of us are 80%, some of us are 90% or more, or some of us 100% as a personal choice. And people vary over time. And there's no problems with there in that regard. Some of us are a bit more low carbish, others are more carnivore and variations of that. What works for you at the end of the day, if you're healthy and doing well, God, don't stop it. If it's working for you, yes. Yes, it's a sort of an oxymoron, isn't it? Making yourself deficient. Tell Ted to stop misbehaving, or I'll send somebody over to spank him. Probably would like that. He's a sick little Ted. Harry, do you prefer sheep feta or cow feta? Sheep. I don't like. I think cow feta is. Yeah, I don't really like it. And also I do like goat milk, even though some people say it's an acquired taste. I love goat milk. Cow's milk, I don't mind it. Sheep's milk, I don't mind it. But when it comes to goat milk, I could sit there guzzling all day long on goat's milk. That's how much I love goat's milk. But when it comes to, I like it does have a bit of a sourness. You get a bit in feta cheeses, with the salt and that little sourness. It really does it for me. I just, that's why, I buy it and consume it quite a bit. I do try and get other cheeses in as well, like brie and stuff like that. But I have to say that I do have a soft spot for feta, for sheep's feta in particular. Yeah. So, yeah, I do like the other stuff as well. Don't get me wrong. But I do have a sort of a preference. So that's probably a taste bud that actually has evolved with me from a younger age, because Dad, when he made his pies and stuff like that, like his zucchini pies and pumpkin pies, he just added shitloads of dairy products and in particular a lot of feta. And so I grew up on eating those sort of foods. And so I got a really liking for feta cheese. I just wish when I actually, in my 20s, as I sort of moved further away from my parents and started eating my own shit, and, I sort of started eating a lot of crap through my 20s and 30s and into my 40s. And that's really what caused me a lot of diseases and all that. I mean, I was using seed oils to cook everything. I was just eating very bad in that regard. It was primarily the seed oils for me. I've never been a big sugar. I actually like things which are a bit sour than sweet. I mean, even when I've had chocolate, it's darker chocolate. like 85% or more. I just don't really get into really sweetness in that regard. It sort of, it's a bit off, puts me off. But savory stuff, yep, I used to consume a lot of savory stuff. The problem is that a lot of the savory things like pies and sausage rolls and stuff like that, a lot of that sort of stuff, the biggest problem is they use seed oils in the preparation of that. So seed oils are endemic in the fast food industry and endemic and all that. And I used to consume a lot of that. So because I used to go out with my mates, go out drinking, buying burgers, buying fries, and like a lot of other people are doing, a lot of young people are doing now, and getting sick very quickly. Now it's even worse because this intergenerational of epigenetic changes that have happened. The Pottinger's cat, these changes, these epigenetic changes. It means that one generation's junk diet is actually affecting genetically the next generation, and then that does more. And that's why rather than actually in your middle age getting sick, people are getting sick in their 20s and earlier sometimes. And so it's, yeah, sorry, I sort of ranted on going there from feta cheese to all the way to to other things, but I hope that sort of yeah, I do love sheep's feta. Yeah, I hope you do as well. PC millennials who want to project the illusion of caring about their health. Yeah, look, there's a lot of that sort of nonsense out there, unfortunately. It's the new sort of, you could say, like a new religion nearly. Yes, like Ian would say, it's like a new religion. No, we're not talking, Ian. So keep your Calvinist ideas to yourself. And so basically the PC millennials that we have today are just, it's a disconnection from nature, disconnection from responsibility and stuff like that. I usually say that to a large extent we're victims of the 1960s hippie culture, this sort of BS that emerged in that era that has affected people, because in the past you used to grow up, you'd get to 12 or 13 or 14 years of age and you would go out and work. My first job was at 13 and a half. And once I did that, my father turned around to me and said, now you're a man. And I can tell you, you mature much faster. You don't become a delinquent. You become a responsible adult. You don't do stupid things. Even though I did a few, you're still young. You're still a young man or a young woman. You'll still do a few things, but you won't really go off the rails, and you won't have these states where you get depressed and all that and really feel that this disconnect with reality and stuff like that. And I think to a large extent that has to do with you end up socializing better and being more balanced and all that. So I think the world that we've created for younger people today, by telling them they can have their cake and eat it, which is impossible, it's nonsense, or a world where basically younger people are forced to, in these false belief systems. The reality is that you need to work to get somewhere. You need to basically be responsible and all that. That doesn't mean that are not inequalities in the world. There are. And when we see them, we should call them out. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying as an individual, you need to basically step up and take responsibility for your life and put things in motion, because it's not going to happen magically. The problem is when you've create a generation of kids that are just handed, oh, you want a toy? Here's a toy. You want this? I mean, I had to do things like tasks before I got a toy. I mean, I was working in a corner shop from the age of, and this was my father's shop, from the age of 11, 10 and a half, 11. So, serving customers. problem is young people now don't have that sort of responsibility. They've had it. Let's say when you make it too easy for them, when difficult times come, they can't cope. They have difficulty coping, and all that. So we've really created a world which is a mess. We've created people that are not strong to survive and thrive. So there's a lot of things that we've just fucked up. Tough love is a good thing. You don't have to be a violent prick or an arsehole. It's about of instilling in young people responsibility and stepping up. That's what it is, getting the best out of them. We don't do that. We just coddle them and sort of hug them and think that, if we're their friends. No, you're not their friend. You're their parent. You're their guardian. You're their parent. You're their mentor. You're not there to be their friend. When they become an adult, you can become their friend. But while they're a child, you're the parent, and learn to be a parent, responsible parent, and try and instill in them good values, how to treat other people with respect if they want to be respected, and how to be strong and to deal with adversity and deal with arseholes in the world, because there are plenty of them, and you need to know how to cope and deal with them. So, yeah, anyway, sorry for ranting. Anyway, what's she saying? She agrees. I suspect she agrees also with me. Make sure the liver is good. Yeah, look, I always get fresh livers. And when my mate Andrew basically slaughters some sheep twice a year, I usually get quite a few livers from him, fresh livers, and I cut them up and store them away and then use the ones that I need to. So, yes. No, they didn't. Not on carrots. It's the wrong Greeks. That's the cartoony Greeks, which are a rabbit Greek. Liver fried in bacon grease. Oh, yes, very nice. Yes, definitely, Shell. I agree. Yeah, bacon lard is, it just gives food such a flavour. I think people just don't realise how nice lard is, the beautiful flavour that you get from food. It's much better than tallow, I think, as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to butter and ghee, it depends on the food. Some food tend to do better with butter, others tend to do better with ghee. I'm sort of conflicted with, because I use both, so I can't make up my mind. It depends how I'm feeling as well. It's one of those I can't make up my mind preferences. Yeah, probably like them just as much. Yes, it is awesome. That's it. That's it. Yes. From the gods themselves. I can relate to that, Shell. I can relate to that. Yeah, they definitely did. Yes. Very accurate. Yeah, look, we've only got the data to go on, and I always say to people, look at the data, and the data's quite clear. It's emphatic. For millions and millions of years until we got to agriculture, our diet was primarily ruminant animals, land-based animals, and some coastal fish or river fish we supplemented. And in some areas, we supplemented a bit more than in others, and that had to do with availability, food availability. So that was the only difference. Because I know there is a bit of a myth out there, that modern Homo sapiens went to South Africa and basically started consuming far more basically fish and grew bigger brains and all this. And I'm going, no, that's nonsense. It's the fat that they grew bigger brains. It wasn't specifically fish. Fish are quite lean in general. That's just nonsense. I mean, let's not forget that all the genus Homo that have existed, Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, Cro-Magnon man, which is a sort of an offshoot of Homo sapiens, a subgroup. You're looking at all these. They all originate from, Homo erectus. And I can tell you, Homo erectus was 2.5 million years ago. So there was already a big brain at that stage. There was no need for fish to increase it. That's another myth, that people, I mean, we didn't basically, our Homo sapiens didn't degenerate their brains from Homo erectus and then basically rebuild it on fish. It's just nonsense. These people just sit there and just talk shit. It's, again, because, vegetarians, it must be the fish and the veggies. It can't be the meat. It's, again, perpetuating these myths by creating these false narratives. Why? Because it suits them. But the N15 data does not lie from what the source of the food is. And that is the power of N15, because I can actually show you the isotopes are different in those of fish and those of ruminant animals and those of coastal fish. It's very different. They actually know that the isotope that exists can actually tell you whether it's a coastal fish or it is an oceanic fish, further away from the coast. So, there are differences and they know that. The science is pretty good when it comes to that, the archaeological evidence. It's just that people that have got cognitive dissonance and don't want to accept the truth, they make up little fairy stories. Why? Because it suits their narrative again. So we need to call them out each time, and that's what I love doing, with you guys, calling them out, calling their bullshit out, and basically showing how the data does not support their statements. And that's what we have to do all the time. And that's what I always do. When they make a statement, I say, well, where's your data? Show me your data. I can show you the data that actually contradicts what you're saying. You show me your data. They run and hide because they're cowards and lying cowards. So let's not forget, and we should call them out all the time. Oh, God. This one definitely needs to be shown. Let me just increase the size of this. Oh, God. Hold on. Bear with me for a sec. Humans can't properly live by eating plants alone. Plant foods are starvation foods at most. That'd be bad. If those kids could read, they'd be very upset. Oh, I love it, mate. I love it. It's the Wicked Witch. It's the witch. And Gregor, is he still alive? on his push-up thing? Oh, God almighty. Thanks, Luke. Oh, that's a great one. And that's a perfect Bart rant. God almighty. You'll love that. I'll send it to him because I think he's dropped off the actual stream. Good one, mate. Good one. Appreciate it. Oops, where am I? I've lost my place. See what happens, Luke? Yes. Okay, we will stop that other part. Did he? Yes, I am. Yeah, so that was good. It was just very recent. I think it was on the recent one that I did on Salad Boy with that probably helped a bit, and some of the other stuff that I did with BART, and I think that sort of helped a bit. Recently, there have been some that are not people that are subscribed to BART or anyone else. They've just, I don't know where they've discovered me. No idea. I've noticed, some of them. So yeah, look, I don't know. What I have done is I've changed some of my tags, and that may have an effect. And I actually pointed that out to Bart. I said to Bart, look, if you look at your tags, the ones that are basically talking the bullshit seem to basically be getting more hits, more counts, the higher the count. And I said, maybe, people in the Carney community should start basically putting bullshit tags. That's what I've actually put no tags on this. I want to see what the result, and then midweek I'm going to do an experiment and actually add a whole lot of tags and see whether it actually brings more people to view the live streams or not. So it's an experiment that I'm doing. And next week I'll be putting the tags before to see what effect it has. So yes, maybe we can out-trick the AI. Maybe we can. So time will tell. But maybe they, then again, the danger is they could just put us all on a blacklist, which means that whatever tags we put, they'll be irrelevant. And we may already be on a blacklist. So hard to say. So yes, unfortunately. Yes, Mr. Halloumi. Yes. You like a bit of halloumi, do you? Bird brain? I bet you do. I know this one does. He salivates over his halloumi. Yes. It would only be you that would bring this to everybody's attention, wouldn't it? Yeah, nobody else, It's called blow blocking fetish. It's a new thing I'm getting into, got to try new things, Tried the whips, didn't really work for me. Michelle, need to try something new. Hi. All that I've missed. Oh, just the usual toilet conversation. Yeah, I know. This crowd can sometimes really deteriorate. Zombie. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the things that I have to put up with, the things that I have to listen to. Oh, just too much for my, innocent ears. Oh, that's nasty. That's nasty. Oh, they're fighting words. Bird brain, they're fighting words. King's Cross of Tasmania. God. Hey, I'll show you my new blue blocking glasses tonight. You'll have a bit of fun in regards to this. You can have a bit of an additional spew. I said to Pim, God, I look like a Las Vegas pimp. I bought some new blue blocking glasses for the later evening, not the computer ones, which is the smaller ones, but these new ones for the TV later at night and all that. And yeah, I said to Pim, God Almighty, I look like a damn Las Vegas pimp. Others will have to wait and look at and those from from this part of the world, from the Americas, will have to wait until the next day when they wake up to actually check the Euro live stream and see it. You'll miss out, only for a few hours. Harry, what's your general stance on mineral supplements? Is it bad to use snake juice as mineral supplements? No. I mean, I use a bit of salt in mine, and I also use a sort of a Tasmanian colloidal mineral. So let me, oops, oh God, stay there. Okay. Let me just bring that up. So that's it there. King Island colloidal minerals. So it's trace minerals. So basically, I put a bit of that, and it's got all the different varieties. Does it have the details on this one? No, just review details. I'm surprised it doesn't have the. Here it is. There's their Facebook page. Oops. Just get rid of. Nope. Let me just go out. Doing it wrong. Doing it wrong. There it is. So there's basically all the different sort of minerals, trace minerals in there. So it's a good trace mineral source. Let me just switch, and so you can actually see there's quite a few. Covers pretty much an extensive list of different minerals, and I sort of use this 68 readily absorbable trace minerals. Nowadays, look, I haven't bought trace minerals for some time now. That's the truth in that regard. But I occasionally, it's probably I do it once every 3 months. I sort of buy them, use them just to basically make sure that I've got sufficient trace minerals in there again. But it's not something that I, like continually do. So I think it's a good thing to basically add some trace minerals in there. I don't like to, the only one that I actually will include in a larger amount is sort of boron. So that's because it sort of helps regulate hormones. It tends to lower, like it improves the estrogen in women and improves the testosterone in men. So it sort of balances out the hormones much better. And so it's got a benefit in that regard. And a lot of people that have, doing, for bone density as well, like 6 grams, 3 to 6 grams, depending on what your bone density is. If it's poor, 6 grams. If it's, just getting old, 3 grams of boron, or if you're eating enough organ meats and stuff like that, you may not need to boron at all. So depends on your circumstances in that regard. And I lost my spot. Thank you, StreamYard, before I could actually click on again. Okay, yep. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe if you haven't. Yeah, it is gross. It is. It definitely is. So we are past the 2-hour mark. So we've got about another 25 minutes to go. So if you've got questions that need to be answered, please put them in now. So Mandy's asking, what are my thoughts on duck egg yolks? Yep, they're fine. Depends, like with chickens, depends. Most duck eggs will probably, when we're comparing the standard chicken, they'll be better in terms of a nutritional profile. But if the chickens are out and about eating a lot of worms and stuff like that, some of the profile can be better in chickens, like in particular the choline part, which choline tends to be better in basically in those sort of foods, and also like whether it's autism, whether it's any other disease of brain disease or whatever in that regard, or syndrome that people may have. So anything that's brain or disease type or syndrome. So disease or syndrome, because syndromes are different to disease. Disease is something that just progressively kills you. Autism is a syndrome, a genetic sort of, things that have gone a bit haywire over a number of generations. And you notice more of these sort of syndromes. But whether it's a brain disease or a syndrome, choline is really important for good brain function. So I would say, if they are grass-fed chicken, if they're not, duck. So in that regard, but you will find a better profile. So and also there's the selenium side as well, which chicken eggs have a good source of selenium as well. So that's good for your thyroid, supporting your thyroid. I mean, a lot of people don't realize is that, there's a lot of nonsense out there from the repeat people that say that you need carbohydrates to support your thyroid. No, you don't need to be running your thyroid at a high speed that will just age you faster and kill you faster. That's nonsense. What you need to keep reverse T down to some extent, it has its biological roles. If you're more ketotic, it's good to have a bit of, but you want them balanced. So to get the proper balancing and all that, you need selenium, because selenium does the conversion between T4 to T3. It's the primary one. Zinc does play a secondary role in all that, but primary it's selenium. It's selenium deficiency that keeps reverse T3 high. So you want to temper down reverse T3, selenium. Richest foods in selenium, liver and eggs. Meat's got some as well, but and certain seafoods. So yes, that's the other coin, which is important. Most people that basically have adequate levels of selenium have normal thyroid, whatever diet they're on. Selenium is that important. And a lot of soils around the world are very selenium poor. That's why in some countries around the world, thyroid issues are much higher than others. So it's not only the diet, it's also these important, if you can't convert T4 to T3, it doesn't matter how much, TSH you've got, it's irrelevant how much you produce. If you can't do the final conversion to the active, or you can't modulate down the reverse T3, you're wasting your time. So selenium plays a big role. And you've heard me plenty of times talk about selenium, very important. And a lot of the seafood, you just have to go and check my video that I did on and also detoxing as well, selenide, that, chelates mercury, takes it out, and cadmium and other things like that. So, the video's on my channel so people can go and see it. So, yes, in that regard. Yes, running low on milk. Yes. Probably that's why he's running low on energy, not getting enough riboflavin, it affects your energy. Very important to get enough ribose. So yes, he needs more. He needs more milk. That's his problem. Harry, how much you must have missed this question. Asking again, that's fine. StreamYard can actually change my position and all that. Food and drinks. What's the better time to consume water, tea, coffee, etc. in relation to meals? That is before and or after meals, pros and cons. Okay. When it comes to actually, water, if you consume water, it will, for about 3 minutes, it can dilute down acidity in the stomach. Only for 3 minutes. That's it. The stomach has the ability to uses some water to create, the acidity that's there. It's just not acid that's thrown out. It actually requires some water. That's why it's not zero. It's not completely like battery acid. It's about, slightly less than 1 or 1, or around there, or 1.5, depending on average amongst humans it's found. So it can be lower or higher, depending on what you're eating or how you're eating or stuff like that. But water can have a diluting effect, but it depends on the quantity of water. So if you're guzzling down a lot of water, yes, that can be quite diluting. You shouldn't do that. If you're consuming with a meal, because even in foods, a lot of foods, like even steak, has quite a lot of water content in it. I mean, the protein, remember, is only 25%. So, there's a lot of water in all foods. So let's not get too hung up on it. But if you consume like a quick glass of water, now if it's before a meal, it's not going to have any effect because it usually goes right through pretty quick. And, so it's less of an issue. If it's after a meal, and if it's in vast quantities, yes, it will have a diluting effect, and it may slow down your ability to digest in that regard. And you usually notice that people, basically, if you're consume too many fluids, you start burping. You're diluting your stomach acid. That's why you're burping. So that's, you got to be a bit careful. The biggest problem with teas and coffees, I would not include them in meals because they have the ability to chelate minerals. So you don't want them there. So if you're going to have tea or coffee, have it, like I'm doing now. I'm drinking, coffee. I should drink a bit more. While it's still, I haven't put any food in. Oops, shit. By the time I get home, nearly knocked it down. Won't be an issue. Sorry, at Dad's place, it won't be an issue having a meal. So it's really important not to consume massive amounts of water. Now, milk is probably different because there's a lot of protein in it, a lot of fats and all that, and the water content isn't that heavy. So having a glass of milk is less of an issue, but there can be other elements in that. Milk tends to be a bit more alkaline, so it can dilute things as well. So, having a small amount, like in a coffee or stuff like that, in a beverage, similar to a coffee, but something different. There are these milk drinks that have only got a bit of milk, and it's a watery thing. It's a bit like your coconut milk and stuff like that. It's very watery and stuff like that. That sort of stuff is less of an issue if you're only zipping it a bit and stuff like that. But if you're consuming vast amounts, I wouldn't do that. I tend to basically nowadays have milk and dairy as something that I consume separately. It's just the way I do it. So I will have some dairy products when I'm actually eating, because it's not a big issue in that regard. Milk tends to be more alkalinic than basically things like cheese. Why? Because cheese has got more, well, it's got less, its potassium to sodium sort of is a different mix, which is basically it. So you've got more sodium. Things that are, that are much higher tend to have an effect. So milk is more alkalinic in a sense. Now, if you were to take milk and put salt in the milk, that's a different thing. That would be exactly like what the Maasai do, where they bleed their animals and they put electrolytes, sodium heavy electrolytes in their milk, and they change the pH. And as a consequence, consuming meat and the milk, not an issue. So you could do that. You could put a bit of salt in. If I don't really like it, I've tried it. So if you like it, some people do. I know some people that I've actually mentioned it to, some friends, and they've tried putting salt in their milk and they like it. Everybody's different in their taste buds. I don't, so that's why I have it separately. But if you do, add it, and then it will be a non-issue. Then you could use it as a beverage. And that's the other thing you can do with water as well. You can add a bit of salt. Have salt water with the actual meal. So there's a number of ways that actually can affect the dilution effect and all that, and the timing and all that. Depending on the food that you're eating and the transit time of that food, that can also have an effect. So meat tends to has a slightly longer transit time, because you've got all those proteins need to be broken down with sufficient acidity. So, and that's the other reason why your pH drops dramatically when you consume meat, because the body senses, oh, it's meat, I need more acid. If it's basically something like kale, it goes, oh, I don't need acid. That's going to go to the colon and ferment down there. That's what really ferments in the colon. To that other veg-tarded guy, that's, vegan warrior, that's what ferments in the colon. And you just have to ask people that have basically had their colon removed. These very little that comes out, a bit of a very little bit of fat and a bit of bile that comes out in the bag, so to speak. So yes, yeah. So I hope that sort of made sense in that regard. So you've got the chelating effect of teas and coffees need to be kept away from foods, in a sense. So if you're going to have coffee, have it before. I usually have coffee and then I have a meal half an hour later, so I don't have to wait for 2 hours before I have a coffee, because then I can actually wait for 2 hours and have a coffee, because it's 2 or 3 hours, because it's the normal sort of distance between two coffees, so to speak, for the chelating reasons, primarily mineral chelation. So that's one point. And the other point is the dilution. There will be varying levels of dilution depending if there's salt in the beverage or not, or how much you consume of that beverage in specific times. So it can vary so much. And a good giveaway that you've really done the wrong thing is the burping. And the worse the burping gets, the more diluted you've actually done it. You've caused more dilution. That's if you're healthy, you don't have any stomach issues, no other problems, no candida, no H. pylori, which normally creates low stomach acid. So naturally, and you've got, issues, stomach, gut issues, that's a different thing. But if you don't, and, you notice those differences, it's because you're diluting too much. So just basically is a way of actually learning to use fluids in the right way, in a moderate way when you're eating. So keep the fluids moderate while you're eating. If you look at traditional people, tribal people, they go out to hunt, they grab a piece of food, they eat it. They don't consume it with beverages. They just don't. They just don't do that. And they have the beverages separately. They'll cross a river, or they'll basically get an ostrich egg and they'll find some plants and get like the Bushmen of the Kalahari, the sand people, and they'll actually extract the low deuterium juices from those plants, and that's their water. And they use that, a low deuterium water, and they use that when they move around trying to hunt for animals. And they consume it to keep their hydration up. And so then what do they first thing these hunters do to fix up their electrolytes? They drink some of the blood. Fix up the electrolyte losses that may have been sustained while they're out there. And then they take that animal back to the tribal group, and then they have it, and then they all enjoy it. So that sort of, I know, because socially the way we've been brought up to have drinks together with food and all that, and that's what I'm saying, by adding a bit of salt and doing stuff like that, those sort of strategies, we can sort of keep the social part of our culture the way we've been brought up while doing good things for our stomachs, so to speak, so they work well. So it's sort of a balance in that regard. I hope that sort of helps. Yes, apocalypse would be serving of kale tossed with canola oil with a dose of statins. Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. That would be like hell. Can you imagine? The devil turns up and goes, you'll be on kibble and statins for the rest of your existence. Yes. And you would go through dying sessions. Yes, definitely that would be awful. Maybe, Shell, maybe. You never know. Yes, he's brewing up something up there in Canada, That's what I said. I hope there's no Mounties in the live stream. Yes. Well, you got a drinky, buddy? Yep, Sean will come to Canada for a few milk beverages. Yes. What was I saying? My favorite mixed drink was a buttery nipple Irish cream and butterscotch. Yep, snaps. Yep, look, things like that, they don't have a lot of fluids either. So combining something like that with food is probably less of an issue. It is true. Yes, I know. 8 minutes to go. 8 minutes to go. You got somebody angry. He wants it to go forever. Damn birds. They have their needs. Hi, Harry. How much raw animal foods do you consume? It varies. It varies quite a bit. I sometimes, and it's pretty much cured, like pork, but it has to be cured to be safe. So it's smoked and cured. So basically pork, I won't have completely raw. I know some people try it, but I'm not willing to take that risk. So I stick to basically cured and smoked when it comes to pork. Other meats, yeah, I can have them raw. I don't like fish raw. No way, So I've never been a sushi person. Sorry to upset certain people, but no, I'm not really into raw fish. Lightly cooked I can consume as fish, but completely and utterly raw, it really just, doesn't really do anything for me. I just, doesn't have the right taste for me. But that's me. Probably the meat that I love the most raw would be beef. Yeah, that I'd have to say beef. Yeah. I will, even when it comes to lamb or goat, no, it has to be beef. Beef's the only meat that I actually like raw. And then, obviously there's raw dairy products that I have, raw milk, and there is some raw crustaceans like, oysters, stuff like that. So I will eat a number of crustaceans which are raw, but they have to be from clean waters that don't have any sort of bacteria or anything like that, any dangerous pathogens in the water. They have to be from clean areas. And that's a problem in North America from what I hear. A lot of people dying because of, bacterial infections and stuff like that, the sepsis from crustaceans that are really from poor regions provided. So you got to be careful with that sort of stuff. So if I was in North America, I'd probably stick to cooking crustaceans. In Tasmania, you can get away with getting raw stuff and all that. And I've even gone and picked mussels with my father off at one of the beaches down here. People know around Dunelly area. There's a lot of mussels and stuff like that. And I've gone there with Dad, and I've picked them, and I've eaten them raw as well. So not an issue. So it depends on the food. Everybody's got different preferences. So but I do think that some raw food is required because you're going to get some enzymes, proteolytic enzymes and stuff like that. As we get older, we probably need more. But you need from varied sources. And then you've got things like as well, which are fermented foods as well. So there's some benefits from that as well. And, just having regular, not overcooked, keep it tapered down to a sense. So if you're going to cook stuff, cook it, rare or at worst medium rare. Don't go beyond that. I mean, I'd accidentally sometimes I over freaking do it. And I basically overcook something, and I still eat it, but I'm not happy with myself when that happens, because it just dries out. It tastes like shit. It's like, oh, let me cut this. It's sort of not enjoyable, but you don't want to throw it out because it costs you money, so you eat it. And what I do is, if I've overcooked something, put some butter on, let it just melt, cut it in between, let the butter seep there, and I just leave it, and I usually cover it so it keeps a bit of the heat, and I'll just leave it there to melt and sort of soften a bit the meat. So if I do something stupid like that, which doesn't happen very often, but it does happen now and then, which is really bloody annoying. Especially now working from home, I'm doing something, I'm in the middle of doing something, or somebody's emailed me and said, "Oh, can you help me with something?" And I've done a live session with them, sort of go, and because I mentor some people as well that are less experienced. So, and I may get caught up and then forget that I've got food that's cooking. And that's when it usually happens, because sort of rather than being there for 10, 15 minutes, it's there for basically something like, 20 to 30 minutes. And it's just is annoying when that happens. But what can you do? Yeah, exactly, sure. Yeah. Bloody horrifying. Rickets now. I mean, you got vitamin D supplements, you got all this sort of stuff. What are these people thinking of, these parents, that they can leave their kids, feeding them, just a whole lot of, fruit all day? God almighty, what are they thinking? They probably think, oh, the vitamin C there is going to help them. No, it's not. Fuck's sake. Just crazy stuff. You need the fat soluble vitamins to regulate those collagen degrading enzymes. They don't just basically work on their own. Bloody hell. It's just crazy stuff. I see this sort of stuff, and it just really, I'm a pretty much tough dude, and I don't put up, but that sort of stuff really hits me. It's hard to watch. I can, me, I slaughter animals, I go hunting, I've done things like that. I've seen people dead and stuff like that, because in our sort of Orthodox faith, when people die, they put them in a coffin, you go to the family, and the body's there, presented. So you see the dead body, you walk around and you pay your respects and stuff like that. We don't hide. Death is death. It's part of the cycle of life. But when you see this sort of stuff, this stuff affects me. because I've been brought up in a loving family. And when I see this sort of stuff, it really sort of, what are these parents doing? It sort of really, frustrates me, angers me, I'm all over the place, So it's not something that I can sit there and watch hours after hours. I think it would really harm my soul. It's so soul destroying to see things like that, and especially people that should be loving parents. And I think these people are not, it's not as if they don't, it's just they have such cognitive dissonance. They're so in this cult to such a level that they've forgotten their role as a parent, do no harm to your child and put your child first. And so, yeah, it's, anyway, I won't, what I mean, my sentiments on this, you've heard it before. It's just, yeah, anyway, it really angers me, but I don't know where to push that anger, because it's, these people are victims as much as, the people that I really, I can really go after is those assholes that are basically, that are well educated, like Gregor and people like that. Those people know exactly, or that other, that mole from Trawley, that other crazy nut, as if she doesn't know. I mean, she's an academic. She knows quite well. But remember what she said? It's all about the animals. Health is unimportant. Ecology is unimportant. Everything's unimportant. Kids, whatever. It's all about the animals. This is the caring vegan, just fucking psychopathic bitch that basically is that is ideologically driven. She doesn't care about anything. She's just crazy. Like a lot of those, they are ideologically, they worship this misanthropic cult, and they've so deep in this cult that they cannot see. They've jettisoned their whole humanity to a large extent. And that is why they think the way they do, because normal humans could not think that way. If you were to say the stuff that, Michelle Lowe actually says to people, that, Garland Farms, JD's actually shown on a number of occasions and shown, so even some of the videos that she's pulled down, the sort of thinking and mentality, you show that to any reasonable person, and it doesn't matter whether they're from the left or right or whatever, any reasonable person, they will say, what the hell is that person thinking or talking about? Because most people would just consider that completely and utterly bizarre thinking. But that's basically when you really get deep into the cult and you become part of the, those acolytes and disciples and preachers of the cult, you really start thinking these bizarre things. So, yeah, what can one say? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Brain growth, so important in those early days where you need a lot of fats in particular, the essential fats like DHA and EPA and arachidonic acid, plus all the other important structural material like palmitate, which is, most of the tissue around the place, lung surfactant, so the kid doesn't get asthma, all these sort of things. Choline and lung and palmitate, which is rich in animal foods, is basically what lung surfactant, most of the lung is made of. So if you don't have sufficient of those, how are you going to make proper lungs to function properly? So all these sort of things, these kids are really going to be in a mess later on. Yes, JD, yes, Cole, Cole, bloody hell, Cole, and he's, you like a bit of, the elixir of pee? Do you, Birdie? You like a bit of a golden shower, mate? No thanks. Okay. Too many truth bombs? Yes, you know me. I can't help myself. Cheers, mate. Cheers. I'm just going to really cycle through these. Sorry, guys, because we've passed the two and a half hour mark. I'm just going to, unless I missed anything really. What was that? You need a Tylenol? Probably not a good thing. Yes, it's not something that I would consume. Oh well, it's towards the end of the year, goes right through. He actually gets a few through the year now and then. So, and I actually cut them, and he cuts a lot of them that actually have not ripened yet. So I put a few away in storage in the fridge and stuff like that. So I do things like that to keep them going for a bit longer. So it's sort of, we're beyond that month now. So it's sort of at the end of the summer, the end of the autumn period when the majority of them are in that regard. You get a bit in spring again. So this sort of, the coming months we'll get a few again. So it depends. It sort of runs like that. In most places sort of runs 2 seasons. But it varies from different parts of the world and all that. So, and usually what happens is the Southern Hemisphere supplies the Northern Hemisphere. The Northern Hemisphere supplies the Southern Hemisphere in those intermonths. And usually in those intermonths, I usually go and buy them from stores. And I sometimes try and get them from City Organic. Sometimes they have imported stuff, which is organic, but it's always hard, in that regard. But at the end of the day, as long as you're not dealing with the outer side, it's probably less of a problem with the pesticides. But I'm still in that period. I usually, if supermarket stuff is the only stuff that I can go for, and it's not organic, I usually give it a miss. So yes, I like it, but yeah, there's some countries, just the sort of shit that they put on them can be quite dangerous. So I'd rather give them a miss, So if I can get them organic, yep. If I can't, and Dad's organic, all of the stuff that he does, which is good. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yes. Birthday boy. G'day, Fapnado. Good to see you, mate. I'm happy you're happy. So, yeah, I think we can say that. Yeah, so you know what I mean. Yes, I've been working for most of my life. Definitely know the feeling. But, I mean, I still have a bit of the child in me. I still have lightheartedness. You don't have to become a sort of you can still be a normal human being with a bit of child in you, a bit of childiness. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're talking about just, it's more we're still strong mentally. That's what some of these younger people lack because of the way they've been brought up. That's the sort of what I was trying to. And Blinky would have to say something like that. So what's your theory, Blinky? He'll have to have a few drinks before he can make up his mind. Yep. Nothing like liver. Anyway, we've seen most of the things. Okay. Okay, we're at the end. Look, guys, thanks. I really appreciate you guys turning up. We're going to have to pull the plug here. Got another 2.5 at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time is the next one. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. And I did see Kate there as well. Sorry, did I miss anything earlier, Kate? Hope I didn't. There's always next week or later today if you're still around. Good to see you as always. So, yeah, I've got to get our latest COVID update, Victoria here. Yeah, look, my older sister's in Victoria, so she's a teacher, and she's having to. She does a lot of studies like online as well, stuff like that, and they've put more administrative tasks on them as well. So she actually told me that some teachers actually retired early, and the reason for that is because they just couldn't cope with all the technology. So yeah, it's been a bit. The whole situation has been a bit problematic for the school system as well. So that's probably going to change a bit the character of the school system. Those who are less technologically inclined seem to be sort of bailing out if they can. So yeah, it's a bit different. So, and she's hoping that she could go back to a regular school as well, so to work. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Be interesting. Actually, she's interested in doing a new study type thing. So yes, I'll wait until she does it before I discuss anything. So anyway, guys, thanks everyone. Appreciate you guys being here. As always, you've been jovial, throwing a few good pointers out there. We've had the odd vegtard turning up and trying to push their little bit of misinformation, but that's okay. I mean, sometimes we need them to turn up, to tell us a bit about their bullshit, blow it out of the water. So no, Ian, no. Do you have a dietary issue? Is it do you want something in regards to halal or non-halal? Yes, Ian. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, later session. Yeah. no kosher. Oh, look, I respect people's, religious dietary approaches. And sometimes if people say to me, look, because I've got some subscribers that are Muslims, some who are Jews, some who are different faiths other than my own, and they do have different dietary things, and I basically will give them information in regards to those dietary approaches. I'm not, a strickler when it comes to those sort of things. People have different cultural upbringings and stuff like that. And sometimes certain foods, because if they haven't had them in their diet for a number of generations, they may not work very well for them. It's like things like certain crustaceans or certain seafood or eggs don't work for certain people. So we've got to be mindful of these things and careful what we say, and so to be helpful to everyone in that regard. So, I'm here for anyone in the carny low carb type community that basically wants, and I don't care what your background is, even people from Turkey. I've even in Australia, I've got some Turkish friends. So I'm sort of, I try to keep the politics and all the other stuff out of the thing. If people basically want nutritional advice and I can help them and some health advice, yep, email me or basically ask me a question. And, yeah, I do have a few that have subbed to me and a few viewers. Actually, I've got more viewers from Turkey than I've got from Greece. There you go. Surprising, isn't it? So, yes. I don't think they are pro-Erdogan type people. They're probably more moderate, more democratically minded people. So, yep, I don't think, And, I would say also the more radical in Greece wouldn't have much to do with me either. Let's put it that way. So, I mean, that's my ancestry. As you guys know, I did live there for a period of time. So I've still got a connection there. I'm a citizen of that country as well. I'm a Greek citizen, as I'm an Australian citizen. Australian born. And my connection is, yeah. Actually, there are the Greek variety of baklava. The origins of baklava is really Arab, Middle Eastern, sort of Persia. It's probably Persian more, but it's sort of, the sort of that sort of region. Probably a bit of Arab, bit of Persian, because Babylon now is within the Arab world. So that whole region, Babylon, Persian, all that sort of developed this variety of thing, the baklava. So the baklava goes way back even before the Turks even appeared in the region. The Turkish baklava they do have a variety which is slightly different. My father has made it in the past, and it's like a cylindrical type. So they do this cylindrical thing, and they have like a cylindrical where the filo, and it's turned into a cylinder type thing, and then put into a big pot, and then you basically put in the hot sort of, it's primarily honey type, a bit of sugar and all that type mixture syrup, and they put that in, and it literally covers the entire lot. You leave it in there so it actually pulls in, because honey has it takes a bit of time to pull into the actual this phyllo and walnut type mix. So it takes a while to pull in, and once that does pull in, then you basically cut that in slices, in these rounded slices. So, and that's that is quite nice as well as a type of baklava, which is slightly different to the baklava which you see in the Middle East, sort of, and in Greece, which is the old one. And there's been a lot of the sweets that exist between the Persian world, the Arab world, and the Greek world. There have been a lot of exchange between those populations in terms of sweets and stuff like that. So there's a lot of similarities. And then when the Turks came in and conquered large parts of that area, they also literally adopted a lot of those practices, those food practices. They incorporated some of their own that they brought from the steppes of Central Asia, and they incorporated some other elements, and they changed a few things. So there are a few differences, but not a lot in that way. There are, ours is still, since the antiquity, very similar. And we're talking about post Alexander the Great, when he went east. And that's when a lot of these things came in. So before that, Greece didn't really have sweets or anything like that. But after Alexander the Great conquered sort of these regions, some of this sort of stuff came in. It was still expensive. It was still between the more wealthier people that could afford it, not the commoners, because sugars and these sort of things, they cost money to basically. It's labor. They're very labor intensive. Honey and all that is very labor intensive. So that's one reason why these populations pretty much sort of. It was more the ruling circles, even in those populations that consume it. I mean, nowadays it's everyone, but it's not something it's more, and I suspect it's the same thing in the Middle East and all that, from my knowledge. People don't eat sweets every day. It's usually basically for somebody's birthday, or in Greece, it's name days. It's certain things like that. It's pistachio is more the Turkish. You'll find it more in the Turkish variety. They'll put it on top, and walnuts is more the Greek variety. So you won't get, nowadays some Greeks are actually putting pistachios on theirs as well, but it's more dominant within the Turkish world, and some other Middle Eastern parts, where walnuts is more the traditional one that existed there in that region. So it does vary in that regard. Yeah, yes. But yes, usually people, when I had my name day, which is the 10th of February, So when my name comes up, which is said Haralambos, and when that happens, what happens is people will basically bring, sweets, baklava or stuff like that. There's a few other types as well, and they'll bring those sweets and they'll, say happy name day, Harry, blah blah. Here's some sweets, and you sit around having a bit of coffee and some sweets in the mid-afternoon. So it's always in the after that midday afternoon period that I've spoken before, sort of like 3 o'clock around there. That's when people mostly turn up and all that. Most of the schools have already shut down by that stage, so people are at home again. So it's usually, your neighbours or your friends will turn up in that. They'll have, a sweet, and then they'll go home because they've got, their evening meal or dinner to have at home with their family. So that's usually that time slot, and it's usually coffee or primarily, but a bit of tea now. But the Greek, the sort of that sort of, and that again, that sort of, both the Turks and the Greeks acquired that from the Arabs and the sort of Persians, because they had that before we had sort of that coffee, which we now people call Arab coffee. Yeah, so that variety, and pretty much permeated all that world. Most people think, when they think about ancient Greece, it was only Rome, when it conquered Greece, that turned Greece's orientation towards the rest of Europe. That's why they call it the Greco-Roman Empire. I mean, even in the Senate, there were Greek senators in the Roman Empire, because the Greeks had actually helped, the Romans on a number of occasions also liberate them from the Gauls, who they'd conquered them for a period of time. So, so that's why there was always this sort of, and it's the reason why under Constantine, eventually the capital was moved to Constantinople, to the east and all that, because the Greeks became more dominant within the ruling classes of the actual Roman Empire. So it was always a Greco-Roman empire. Even the Turks used to call us in the past, they didn't call us Hellenes, which means, which is the ancient, they used to call us Romius, which means Roman. We just readopted our name again when we liberated ourselves. But up until that point, so that's, before the Rome came, because Rome was actually invited by a number of city-states. They wanted to basically keep the Macedonian Greeks and the Spartans, they wanted them defeated, because they would always been rival city-states. And so they actually allied themselves with the Romans, some of the Greeks. So Rome didn't actually conquer Greece entirely. They sort of allied themselves with a large amount of the city-states, and then conquered the remainder who weren't willing to ally themselves with Rome. So it was a bit of a, divide and rule. And a lot of the cities remained within that entity because they got benefits. They were, part of the citizenry, in many cases, or had privileged positions or autonomy within the Roman Empire. So the Greek world was very different, the way it had its relationship with that's why they call it the Greco-Roman. That's why even within all Roman senators spoke both Latin and Greek. And Latin is actually a dialect of Greek anyway. It's one of the oldest dialects that actually of the early colonists of Sicily, but that's a side issue. But pretty much up until that point, when the Romans came in, Greece's orientation was east, not west. Their focus was on the Achaemenid Empire, which is the Persian Empire. That's where their focus was, east. They didn't give a shit about it, because most of the West was underdeveloped. So our rivalry, economic, political, and military rivalry, was with the East for most of our history. And so, that was part of it. Even some of the other Indo-Europeans, like the Hittites and all that, were in conflict either with the Greeks, who were closely related and had similar gods, or they were in conflict with the the other Middle Eastern powers there, including Egypt. So it was, very, very, very different dynamics, so to speak, within that whole region. That was why I focused. That's why our cuisine is very similar to these parts of the world, because we basically, we were literally either attacking or conquering or basically fighting each other and sharing food, culture, all sorts of things. That's why there's so many similarities in that whole region, So yes. So basically, Greeks are very much have their culture has both elements of Middle Eastern and also elements of European. So it's a very mixed culture, always has been. There's a myth by Western European leaders that, Greek civilization, Western civilization, well, Greece really is a mix of both those, the sort of that region. It's in that regard. And these regions, let's not forget, also some of the a lot of them Hellenized in the Roman era. They didn't go back. If you look at Jewish scholars and the Arab scholars and all that, a lot of them actually spoke Greek. It was the international, like today, English is the international language of commerce and trade and all that. So it was the world was very different. It's only in the modern states that emerged with capitalism, nation states, that this breaking up of peoples happened, and you became a Greek or a Turk or an Italian or whatever. Up until then, these populations sort of intermixed, shared a lot of information, all that from all over the place. So it was a very different type of environment. This sort of cultural narrowness that actually emerged with a nation state is a very, it's only been around for a couple of 100 years. It's not for most of humanity, we've shared things. We've come across each other, whether we've been tribal, and we've shared things. And, so as I say, we're all Africans fundamentally. We've just, over time, created different languages and different cultures and stuff like that. We've pretty much enriched the cultural fabric of humanity in a sense. So that's how I see it. Anyway, others may not, but they basically they are poorer for it. Let me put it that way. Anyway, I better get over to Dad's. God almighty, I did overstretch, ranting again. Yeah, I know. See you guys. I'll see the remainder of you people, nice people, tonight in a couple of more hours from now. So what is it? 4.5 hours from now. So here's